Nobody prepared you for this. You grew up believing that a mother's love was a right, something guaranteed, like air or a heartbeat. But there is a pain that goes unnamed, that hides beneath layers of silence, the pain of the son or daughter who was not loved.
And that pain, even if you can't see it, even if you hide it, still beats inside you. Like a rotten seed that sprouts into self-deception, anxiety, fear of rejection, and a hatred that you don't always know who to direct at. But it's there. Nietzsche sensed it. The soul that is not loved breaks, but it also opens. Imagine this. You're born, you cry, you reach out expecting an embrace that never comes. What should have been shelter, tenderness, presence, turns into coldness, demands, judgment. An absent mother doesn't always leave. Sometimes she's there, but not really there. And that's what hurts the most. Because the body is present, but the soul doesn't see you. And that's where the wound is born. Not from absence, but from covert emotional abandonment. That is the most discreet tragedy. The one that leaves no visible bruises, but marks every vertebra of your identity. Have you ever wondered why you always repeat the same self-sabotaging patterns? Why you run from love when it's offered purely? Why you keep choosing relationships that mirror your lack over and over again? Because unconsciously, you're trying to solve with others what you could never resolve with her. And you don't know it, you don't notice. But it's encoded in the way you bond, in your fear of being seen, in your brutal need for someone to choose you, even if that means erasing yourself completely. Nietzsche spoke of eternal recurrence, of the cyclical repetition of suffering until something inside you breaks or awakens. That's the key. Maternal rejection is not just a trauma, it's a labyrinth. And only those who have the courage to face it head-on can emerge from it without turning to stone. But wait, because this is where the story takes a turn. The pain is not the end, it's the doorway. The rejection, tattooed into your bones, can be the beginning of your individuation process. Because what you didn't receive from the outside is meant to be built from within. This is where the path becomes philosophical, psychological, transformative. The mother you lacked, you can birth her within yourself. And that's not just a pretty phrase. It's a brutal act of reconstruction, of stopping the search outside for what only you can give yourself. And that hurts. Let's not romanticize it. It hurts to look at the woman who brought you into this world and admit that she didn't know how to love you, that she couldn't, that she didn't want to, that she was wounded. It hurts, but it frees you. Because as long as you keep waiting for her validation, you'll remain a slave to her shadow. And that shadow sometimes has your voice. The greatest tragedy isn't that you weren't loved. It's that you learned not to love yourself as a result. You learned to speak to yourself with her critical voice, to judge yourself through her cold eyes, to demand of yourself what even an adult couldn't bear. And every time you fail, every time you fall, you hear her. She's not there, but she lives in you. Until you cast her out, until you recognize her, face her, and decide not to be the echo of her rejection. This is where Nietzsche speaks to you again, even if you don't realize it. Because deep pain, when understood, becomes strength. The soul that has hit rock bottom has two paths: to destroy itself or to transform. And only those who embrace their abyss find the way to authenticity. There is no force more brutal than that of someone who has made their wound a tool. But it's not enough to understand it. You must ritualize it. Depth psychology teaches that traumas are not overcome with motivational phrases. They are transmuted through symbolic acts. You need to look at that internal mother, the one you built from scraps of fear and need, and say goodbye. Hold a mourning ritual, a psychic separation. Because as long as you keep waiting for her to look at you, to see you, to hug you, you'll still be that lost child in an empty room. Do it. Write a letter saying everything you never could. Cry if you must. Burn that letter. Bury the ashes. This isn't theater. It's emotional alchemy. The unconscious understands the language of symbols. Say goodbye, but mean it. Then close your eyes. Ask yourself, who would I be if I never had to beg for love? What part of me is still waiting for a caress that will never come? Can I be myself without her approval? And that's where the real revolution begins. That's where the emotional adult is born. The one who doesn't seek a mother in every partner. The one who doesn't abandon themselves. The one who doesn't self-punish. The one who becomes their own mother. Loving, firm, present. That missing mother now lives in you, in the way you care for yourself, speak to yourself, no longer betray yourself. Nietzsche knew it. Those who have a why can bear almost any how, and your why lies in that wound. It wasn't random. It was life's brutal way of showing you your capacity for reconstruction. The rejection was the spark. The flame now is up to you. And before we close, a warning. The shadow doesn't disappear, it transforms. The internal mother you build can also fall into the excesses of criticism and demand. Don't idealize her. Tend to her. Renew her. Allow yourself to fail without self-annihilation. Self-love is not a destination, it's a daily practice. And every time you choose not to repeat the cycle, you're making history. Your history. So no, you're not broken. You're in process. You weren't less loved. You were called to love yourself without intermediaries. And that, painful as it is freedom. The freedom to stop waiting, to stop begging, and to begin building with what you have. You, whole, incomplete, enough. Now tell me, are you willing to be your own mother? To stop begging for what you always deserved? Because if you take that step, no one will be able to stop you. Because you won't be searching for love anymore. You'll be it. And that no one can destroy. And this is where something even more unsettling happens. Something almost no one talks about. The body remembers too. The wound of maternal rejection is not only archived in the mind, it's also imprinted in your gestures, your posture, the tension in your muscles, the way you breathe, or how you clench your jaw when being observed. Abandonment doesn't just affect you psychologically, it shapes your physiology. Because when affection doesn't arrive, the body becomes a silent war zone. And the worst part? You normalize it. You call anxiety what is really a biological alert that never turned off. You live as if someone is going to leave you, even when no one has arrived yet. You know what that is? Emotional hypervigilance. An unconscious programming that says, get ready to be ignored. Don't relax, don't trust. And every time someone gets too close, your nervous system tenses. Not because that person is dangerous, but because your body remembers. It remembers all the times you reached out for warmth and got ice, all the times you cried and were told to be quiet. And so love becomes a threat, contact, a test, closeness, a minefield. You fall in love with fear, you bond halfway. Not out of cowardice, but because your body is still bracing for a blow. And this brings us to another brutal truth. Unprocessed maternal rejection disconnects you from your instinct. Nietzsche spoke of instinct as the vital force that drives us to live authentically. But if you grew up learning that your desire was too much, that your crying was annoying, that your enthusiasm was unwelcome, you end up believing that feeling is wrong. And that kills instinct. You become someone who overanalyzes everything, filters every impulse, self-censors before acting. You don't know what you want. You don't know if what you feel is real or a trap. And there lies the greatest theft. They robbed you of yourself. But listen closely, because here's something that could change everything. The body can relearn. It doesn't matter how long you've lived on alert, how many times you've closed your eyes not to feel. There is always a way back. And that way isn't mental. It's physical. It's slow. It's uncomfortable. But it's possible. And it begins when you give yourself permission to inhabit yourself. When instead of fighting your reactions, you listen to them. When you turn every anxiety attack into a question. What part of me is asking to be seen? Look, real healing isn't grand. It has no epic music or movie endings. It's about returning to the simple. Eating when you're hungry without punishment. Sleeping without guilt. Breathing without fear. Touching yourself without feeling weak. The self-love everyone talks about isn't some abstract idea. It's a return to the body. Because only when you return to yourself can you begin to distinguish what you truly feel from what you were taught to feel. And then something miraculous happens. The body, when it feels safe, stops protecting itself. It lets its guard down, it softens. And with it, your way of being in the world softens. You begin to respond instead of react, to choose instead of repeat, to trust, not others, but yourself. Because you're no longer waiting to be saved, you're choosing yourself. Every day, in silence, without witnesses. But this doesn't end here, because there's an even deeper dimension of this wound that almost no one explores. Your relationship with time. Yes, time. Maternal rejection distorts your perception of the present. It anchors you to the past and terrifies you about the future. It makes you live in a constant state of anticipation, always expecting the worst, always imagining the fall before taking the step. And do you know why? Because when you didn't feel safe as a child, your mind learned to anticipate danger as a defense mechanism. But that mechanism, which saved you back then, now sabotages you. You're here, but you're not. You're trapped between what wasn't and what you fear might be. And meanwhile, life passes, unlived, hijacked by a wound you can't even clearly remember. It's like living under a spell, an ancient spell that says, don't expose yourself, don't feel, don't hope. And that spell takes the shape of phrases like, better not get your hopes up, better alone than poorly accompanied, don't trust anyone. Do you see? Trauma creates a language, one you repeat without knowing it, one that shapes every decision. And here lies the challenge, to change that language. But to do that, you have to speak to time. You have to look at your past without getting stuck in it. You have to reclaim your presence. You have to learn to be here. Now, not like someone waiting for something to go wrong, but like someone who knows they no longer have to survive. And that requires a death, the death of the self born from rejection. The self that became strong to avoid crying. That became brilliant to be seen. That became hard so it wouldn't hurt. That self is not you, it's just armor. And it's time to let it fall, not violently, not with contempt, with gratitude. Because it held you, it got you here. But you don't need it anymore. Look, no one comes out unscathed from their first heartbreak, and the first is always the mother. But that doesn't doom you. On the contrary, it invites you on a path of radical freedom, of emotional self-management, of identity built from the inside. And in a world built to distract you from yourself, that is an act of rebellion. So do it. Reconnect with your body, reprogram your time. Tell the past, thank you, but no more. Tell the future, you'll come, but I'm not afraid of you. And tell the present, here I am. Finally, whole. With scars, yes, but no longer waiting for someone else to heal them. Because now I understand that some wounds don't disappear, but they stop hurting when you accept them. And that acceptance, that silent embrace of your story, is the first real act of love you can offer yourself. It's not about forgetting what you lacked. It's about not letting it keep deciding for you. Because if Nietzsche's thought teaches us anything, it's that we weren't born to settle for the wound. We were born to transfigure it, to turn poison into medicine. And that, only someone brave enough to look at themselves without masks can do. Are you ready? Because it all starts when you stop asking permission to exist. And if you've made it this far, let me tell you something no one else has told you so clearly. You're not broken. You're just incomplete, because you were never given all the pieces. But now you know you can carve them yourself. Maternal rejection is not a permanent curse. It's a threshold. Not everyone crosses it, because few dare to look at pain without anesthesia. But you're already doing it. You are not the same person who started this video. You've descended one step deeper into yourself, where others don't reach. And that is a privilege, uncomfortable, yes, but deeply transformative. Here comes the most brutal truth. Many spend their entire lives looking for answers outside, in books, in partners, in gurus, in new traumas with trendy names. But real answers don't shout. They whisper from deep within. And they're not found while you run away, but when you stay. When you finally stay. Not with someone, with yourself. And you know what the most unexpected ending of all might be? That maybe you didn't need a perfect mother. Maybe you needed that absence, to have the courage to create a version of yourself that doesn't depend on anyone to bloom. Because true maturity isn't about overcoming your mother. It's about choosing what to do with her shadow. And if the wound was the beginning, the conscious decision of who you are is the end of the spell. You're no longer bound to what you didn't receive. You're free to create what you never got. And that is more powerful than any perfect story. But be careful, because this is where many get off. Many, just as they touch the truth, get distracted, fall asleep, run away with the excuse of, I get it now. Number, you didn't understand anything if you don't do something with this. Understanding without action is just another form of anesthesia. So I ask you, are you going to turn off this video and go on as if nothing happened? Or are you going to do something real, tangible, visceral with what you just felt? Because if it doesn't pierce you, it's useless. Ask yourself this final question. Who would I be if I stopped acting like someone wounded? Not as if I hadn't been hurt, but as someone who no longer lives from that wound. Think about it. If you feel it, write it down. Because this is where I invite you to something deeper than a casual comment. If this video touched something real in you, leave this phrase in the comments. I no longer search, I build myself. Just that. I want to see how many are willing to take that step. No pretending, no decorations, raw, honest, present. And now that we've made it this far, before we continue, I want to present the following to you. Our book, The Formula of Awakening, is now available. Do you feel like there's something inside you that wants to awaken, but you don't know where to start? Then I invite you to transform your way of thinking, and with it, your way of living. Discover who you can become. Start today. The link to get the ebook is in the first pinned comment of this video. Grab your copy now at a great price. With that said, let's continue with the video. And if you want more content like this, you already know what to do. Subscribe, but not out of habit. Do it if you're tired of superficial layers and want to keep digging into what hurts until you find what heals. You won't find magic formulas here, but you will find uncomfortable truths that can change your life if you let them in. See you in the next video. Or not. Because if you've done the work, maybe you don't need me anymore. Maybe this was the last door. Maybe you're ready to speak to yourself with no intermediaries, to listen to yourself without interpreters, to look at yourself and say, without trembling, here I am. And this time, I'm not leaving. Turn off the light, sit in silence for a moment, and listen. What you feel right now is you coming home. Welcome back.